What is up, YouTubes? Mountain Man Magic, and it's time for our core set 2020 pre-release guide, Two-Headed Giant style. This set actually has more going on in it than I was expecting. I think it looks better than core set 2019, but in this video we're going to check out which cards are now different, better, or worse based on it being Two-Headed Giant to help you know what to keep an eye out for when you're building your decks with your partner. Please like and comment because it helps YouTube shine its light of recommendation upon this channel. Please, just, you know, one of these guys. All right. Let's get into it. So what are those cards that get better or worse with this being Two-Headed Giant? Starting with white, Herald of the Sun allows us to pump any creature with flying so we can help out our partner there. And then Moment of Heroism is nice too because you can help out their creatures another way. If they start getting a little out of control, you hit them with the pacifism, they'll love it. In blue, we don't often have many options. Here we get sort of one with Zephyr Charge. It lets you give any creature flying so you can help your teammates monster bomb creature with this enchantment. On the flip side though, black is often a very Two-Headed Giant friendly color. Here we get some nice options. Blight Beetle shuts down both of your opponents from getting 1/1 counters. You should play it. Epicure Blood, you gain 1. Remember, it's only you when it says you and it counts the life gain for only your effects, but each opponent does lose 1, so you ping them for a total of 2 damage. Scheming Symmetry will probably never be more powerful than in this format because you have to target 2 players, so you and your teammate get to tutor for 1 mana. I'm not exaggerating when I say this card is game-winning good. Thought Distortion seems like a better play here as well because you will have a better chance at having a good target for it because you got 2 opponents to choose from. Yarok's Fenlurker also makes both opponents exile a card from their hand. In case you didn't know, that is quite good in Two-Headed Giant, especially if you're able to time it well. So yeah, black is good. Black has some great options for us, but I would say red has the best top end for Two-Headed Giant. Premium example number 1, if you are lucky enough to pull and get on the battlefield Chandra Awakened Inferno, you just win. Her +2 gives each opponent an emblem, and that puts them on a clock immediately. This card is insane because you can give them multiple emblems. This card is so busted in Two-Headed Giant, it should be preemptively banned. Unless I pull it, and then game on. If you beat this card, come back and tell the tale because I don't know if it's possible without you or your partner having horrendous draws around it, or you counter it so it never actually hits the battlefield. Moving right along, Cavalier of Flame, when it dies, burns both opponents, making this probably the best of the cycle for this format. Of course, you're going to play any of this mythic rare cycle that you do pull, but we got to call out Cavalier of Flame as probably the best for Two-Headed Giant. And then Drakuseth Maw of Flames can now target 1 opponent for the 4 damage, the other for 3 damage, and then take out a creature with the additional 3 damage target. This card just wins you the game in general if you get it down and attack, and is especially true for Two-Headed Giant. 14 damage on 1 attack from 1 creature, that's pretty ridiculous. Glinthorn Buccaneer, a solid card in general, gets a little better because it now pings your opponents for 2 each time you discard a card. And here we have Goblin Smuggler because it can make your teammate's creature unblockable, which is nice because it stops them from just chump blocking this big creature you built up. And then lastly, we get 2 combat tricks we can use as well, Uncaged Fury and Infuriate, to help out any creature you want. Then there's green, and unfortunately there's nothing to really show you here. I guess you could play Gift of Paradise to help your teammate out if they're stuck on 1 color or mana screwed, but if you do this, you're both probably having all kinds of problems in that game. To put yourself out of your misery, just Rabid Bite your teammate's creature and move along. But something I would mention, assuming one of you is playing green, is definitely main deck cards like Plummet and Natural End in Two-Headed Giant because it is a best of 1 format. Others I would mainboard in Two-Headed Giant are Devout Decree, Aether Gust, Noxious Gasp, Fry, and Veil of Summer. I think the value of these outweigh the much smaller risk you face because of you having 2 opponents. Oh, and I forgot the gold card that gets better is Corpse Knight, which can really do some work here. Go for a white-black wide board type of deck, or go with a wedge deck like white-black-green and just drain out your opponents with a massively wide board. Speaking of which, apparently this set is meant to be drafted around the wedge color pairings, and I would say Two-Headed Giant is a bit more similar to drafting because you just have more cards at your disposal, kind of like you would see in a draft, you know, to make a slightly higher powered deck. In case you didn't know, wedges are 2 allied colors. In case you didn't know, wedges are 2 allied colors, like we'll say white and blue, with their enemy color, which is across the color wheel at red. Man, I didn't think I could use those as like a teaching tool. That was fun. The 2 wedges that I think would work best together, I think, are Mardu, red, black, and white, and then Timur, which is green, red, and blue. My reason being is I think white and black and red work well together in this set because white and black is just a pretty strong combo if you have the right gold cards and whatnot. So you can use red to complement that color pairing with some combat tricks, help it play out that mythic rare if you get it. But then Timur can go all in with the elementals and use the red for most of its removal since black and white have enough options on their own. But all the wedges look fun, and I think all the color pairings look pretty decent as well. Again, it's going to be your card pool that determines what's best. But with individual color rankings, for this set, black and red are probably the tier 1 because of how well they can both take advantage of it being Two-Headed Giant. Granted, red probably isn't as strong unless you get one of those really good rares or mythic rares, but I think its top end getting bumped up just moves it up to that tier 1. In the middle, I have blue and white because they just give you good options no matter what's going on the board. And then green I have in tier 3 because it just has the least amount of interaction, and especially instant speed interaction. It's going to give you some monster creatures, but with having 2 opponents, they're going to have 2 different people that can deal with those big creatures you're playing, which can limit its effectiveness, but you will overcome. Now, if you're jumping in, if this is one of your first pre-releases, when you start building your decks, do not worry about who owns what card. Like, you can keep in the back of your mind, oh, I really want that uncommon, or I really want these rares back. Of course, you know, like send text to each other or something, but time is of the essence. I really prefer you open your packs and put them in order so that you can look at the entire card pool together and start figuring out who's going to play what colors and which colors seem the most powerful or can pair the best together. Time is of the essence, people. We got to put some work in. Make sure each deck has some type of removal. Make sure each deck can handle that big monstrous threat that you need to expect your opponent's going to play. And make sure someone has some artifact or enchantment removal in their deck. Chandra, you are still insane. And you get a free mulligan in this format because it's a best of 1, so use it aggressively. You definitely do not want to keep a subpar hand being a best of 1. We also have the London Mulligan as the new norm, which is where you look at your hand. If you're mulliganing down to what would be 6 cards, you still get to look at 7, but then you'd put 1 on the bottom. It just makes it a bit safer to make sure you're going to end up with a decent hand to keep to start the game. And then lastly, I like to start on the draw. Even if we win the dice roll, I let them go first because I think the 2 cards between you and your teammate are better than getting on the board first because it's a grindier format. You just want the resources. I wouldn't say I always do it, but it's definitely my default selection unless we're really in on that aggro game plan. I think I covered the most important bits. Go check out my Core Set 2020 pre-release guide if you want more of a breakdown on each color and the color pairings. And let me know if you and your partner have any game plans going in. What are the 2 decks you all want to build? What cards are you hoping to pull? Is there any strategy you think is really going to work at this pre-release? And of course, if you have any questions, feel free, just let me know. Happy to help you out there. If you want to help me out, you can like, comment, subscribe. Really means a lot. Thank you so much. Best of luck at your pre-release. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.